Well, yeah, I, I've been getting some inquiries lately about like sponsorship kind of stuff and and making connections and we have a just like a Google Doc with people's or a Google Sheet, I think it is, with a lot of people that a lot of probably most of you are on it. And there's Angela on the button. Uh, and and there's like 80 people on there or something. I was looking at it today. I was like, wow, look at all these people. And so just trying to think if there's something we might like to do as a community rather than a Kevin Griffin talk thing. And just if people have any ideas, and particularly if you are somebody who is either sort of feels like you'd like to reach out and help other people because a lot of people, as you know, struggle in early recovery um, and in AA and 12-step programs, there's sponsorship. We don't have that going on here. I know Recovery Dharma has something similar, but if you feel like you would like to help people, you can go like scroll through the Google Sheet and read, see somebody who wants some help, you could email them and say, hi, I'm offering, if you'd like to chat sometime, or vice versa. If you're somebody who would like some support, go on there and look for somebody who's offering, because some people are specifically saying that they're available. Other people are like, well, I've been sober for 20 years. So if they say they've been sober for a long time, you can always, and they put their name on this list. And presumably you can email them without them feeling that you're harassing them. So I'd like to just kind of highlight that, and maybe I'll make a little bit more of an effort of mentioning it more often, so that we can make use of this idea that we got some time back of like, oh, let's make this make it possible for people to connect.
Yeah, and I wonder if maybe adding, I don't know how the community feels about this, and people can feel free to email me. I'm on the list. So yeah, feel free to email me as well with ideas or thoughts, because I'm happy to do more in this area. But like adding a column about, someone who's really, because it's like, I think it's one thing to have a contact list, but I don't know if everyone on the contact list is really like wanting to actively sponsor, which I don't even know what that really means necessarily in this context of something that's not, strictly 12-step, but like regular, I don't know. I guess that we've kind of left it broad because we weren't sure, but anyway, just a thought.
I mean, I figure if somebody puts their name on there with their email address, whether they're sponsoring you or not, they're saying you can email me.
Right. Yeah.
And I don't think we have a lot of people coming on here, looking for like a date. I'm gonna, harass somebody like, hey, I really like your square. Like, I really like your background, man.
But anyway. Feel free to also reach out to me separately if you have ideas about things to do, to engage more with the community aside from this list. I'd be happy to receive those emails as well.
And as I said, I am going to try to put together some kind of an event in the East Bay, probably in January. So maybe folks will want to show up for that. I also will mention before we start meditating, because we're getting pretty deep into it, that I just put a flyer up on my website for a retreat in March, sort of odd days. It's like a Thursday to Monday, because those are the days that were available at the Redwood Retreat Center, where some of you have come. Here's a link to the flyer. And it's a practice of non-attachment to flavorful food, but it's a good practice for all of us who are trying to overcome our attachment to not good food. It's perfectly fine. But anyway, we were thinking about putting some kind of a warning at the bottom of the thing. This is not Spirit Rock food. Anyway, so let's begin sitting, and we'll do 20 minutes of meditation, and then I'll talk for a little while, and I will be guiding the meditation for about half the time. So just settling back into your meditation posture, whatever posture really supports you being awake and aware and relaxed, calm. Well, you can close your eyes or just lower your gaze. Drawing the attention inward, so that can mean bringing awareness to the sensations you're experiencing in the body, as well as the other feelings, the mood. But let's start with a little bit of a body scan, if you like. Relaxing the jaw and feeling the sensations on your face. Releasing the shoulders. Just feeling the sensations of the arms and hands. And softening the belly. Just being aware of the sensations in the torso and the chest and belly, the back. The movement of breath. And relaxing through the hips and pelvis. Feeling the sensations of sitting, contact with the whatever you're sitting on, and the legs and feet. Just feeling the body as this living object. Quite remarkable what each of our bodies is doing right now to sustain our lives. And we can only be aware of a small fraction of that. Just some of the sensations, so much is going on below our capacity to feel. But just to know that's happening and to recognize that, the dependence we have on these functions of the body that we really can't control or influence. Of course, it's a question as to what that would mean. I were controlling my body, what would that mean? So just feeling yourself sitting and settling. Feeling your mood and mind state. I think most, if not all of us, it's the early evening. So feeling how the day has brought you to this moment, what you're carrying with you, again, internally and externally. So both from the mental and emotional level and from the physical. Just having a sense of openness, allowing whatever is arising, whatever you're feeling, to be there, breathing with that. No resistance, no grasping, just being. And there may be a subtle sense of comfort or pleasure, just being still. It may not be, might be difficult. Sometimes it's hard to just be still. We get restless. Don't feel like sitting, or the mind seems to be carrying us away. So whatever's happening, just acknowledging that. The less we fight it, the less problematic it is. And if there is a pleasant state, just settle into that. Not trying to hold on to it or define it, but just relax and enjoy. Even with pleasant states, pleasant feelings, the mind can still sweep us away, like take us somewhere pleasant fantasies, memories. But our intention here is to stay present with the felt experience moment by moment. So if you find yourself drifting into thought, no matter its nature, gently come back. We don't judge ourselves for thinking or losing track of the breath. We just let go, start again. If there's a stream of persistent or difficult thoughts, it can be helpful to first check in with what the mood is. What are you feeling? Often what's behind persistent thoughts is a persistent feeling. Might not be acknowledged, or we may be resisting it. Sometimes the thoughts are a way of trying to suppress or change the feeling. And that just creates more tension and inner conflict. So the mindfulness practice is to turn toward the difficult feeling and breathe with that, allow that, give it space. So learning what it means and how to breathe with our felt experience. Really helpful tool. See if you can explore that if you're not familiar with it. So it sort of means not focusing intently on a particular sensation of breath, but more just kind of feeling the chest and belly rising and falling. And then connecting through that area of the body into the emotion. It's often in that same area. So the movement of the breath, in a sense, gives movement to the feeling. The opening of the breath opens the feelings. Doesn't make them go away, but it helps us to be in a step out of the struggle. To not be in this adversarial relationship with our own inner life. And then you may find that the feeling passes like a wave crashing or cloud blowing through the sky. Things open up again and you can just settle back to just the breath. Oh, I can tell you, I can get drowsy very fast at 7 o'clock in the evening. Fortunately, I didn't fall asleep. That's good. So, on Tuesday, I was talking about higher power. I mean, a spiritual awakening, and the higher power of spiritual awakening, as it says in Burning Desire, and that kind of sent me back to the book The Island by Ajahn Ajahn, which is an anthology of the Buddha's teachings on Nibbana. And so I'm going to pull a little bit out of that tonight. Yeah, maybe I'll just start with that. So this gets us somewhat into the weeds of Theravada Buddhism, and so some of the teaching is kind of, well, for me, it's like beyond me, kind of in a way. But I think there's a value in sort of knowing what they say. Whether it's something I feel I can activate or accomplish or not. And so I actually I mentioned the 10 fetters the other day, and so I was kind of looking them up, and I was pleased to discover that of my bookmarks here, of which there are a few, two of them were on the 10 fetters. So like I went to the index to look up the fetters, and then I was like, oh, and then I went to the page. It's like, oh, I already have it bookmarked. So, and so let me see if I can find the thing that we can start with here. So the 10 fetters are the things that are supposedly going to be removed in the process of enlightenment. So fetter is an interesting word, not one we typically use in our daily life, unless you're a horse person. Isn't that right, Catherine? Isn't that like a horse term? What does it mean for? It's like there's something to do with holding horses back, right?
Say it again. I'm looking for my notes. And
fetter. So Fetter.
I'm not sure.
No?
I don't know that.
I always associate it with horses for some reason, and I think it has something to do with the reins and the bit and everything being a fetter that holds them back.
News to me, Kevin.
Okay, well, I'll maybe
I'll do some research.
Yes, thank you. You do the research, and appreciate it. So, in any case, there are these things that hold us back or keep us from becoming enlightened, and so, so there are these 4 stages in this traditional model, 4 stages of enlightenment, that and at which certain fetters are removed at different stages. So I know this is a little technical, but I'll try to bring it back to recovery and to just our lives, but just to get into this, cover this piece first. So there's these 4 stages, and so it says this is called the 4 stages of realization. I think this is Ajahn Pasano's part of the book. The stream enterer is the first, then a once returner. So that means returning, having a rebirth as a human. A non-returner, which means you're not going to have any more rebirths as a human. And a fully enlightened one, which is an arhat. And so I actually just recently learned, because I thought non-returner meant like, okay, that means you're going to get enlightened in this lifetime, but actually it just means it means you could get enlightened in this lifetime, fully enlightened, like to become an arhat, or you might like be reborn in another realm, like typically the Tusita heaven, which is where the Buddha was apparently hanging out in his last lifetime before he became the Buddha. Now, sometimes people ask, is a Buddha the same thing as an arhat, a fully enlightened one? And the difference is the Buddha is a fully enlightened one who is also a world teacher. And those are much more rare. He's perfected many, many things that are actually not necessary to become an arhat. But it's like, if you read his story, supposedly many lifetimes before he became the Buddha, he made a vow to become a Buddha. Like, he wasn't just going to like become enlightened. He was going to go like further than that to become a world teacher, which of course he did become. Now, just to acknowledge that all of this is, a theory. I mean, it's, certainly, people who are completely invested in Theravada Buddhism accept this as fact. I'm not taking a stance, particularly I don't take a stance on rebirth, just sort of beyond my pay grade, as they say. But this book, The Island, I've heard Ajahn Amaro and Ajahn Pasno talk about it, and they may even say it, they probably say it early in the book, that their goal in writing this book was to encourage people to become stream enterers, to attain this first stage, because they feel that a lot of people don't realize that that's possible, and don't realize how valuable it is. Again, within this model, once you attain stream entry, you will inevitably attain full enlightenment, supposedly within, I think, 7 lifetimes, something like that. All right, so there's all that, and I I'm just trying to kind of share some information. One of the things I talked to some of my mentees about is different models of teaching, and one of the models that you can use is the educational model, and that's not typically the model that I use as a teacher. I'm more of a kind of practice oriented, I think. But once in a while, I like to get into that, just a little bit of sort of educational model. So I'm going to go through quickly the 10 fetters, and then I'm going to focus on a few of them and try to make a connection with our recovery and with the 12-step process. So, typically, so there's 10, but they're divided into 2 5s, it's like the lower fetters and the higher fetters. So there's identity view, which is the belief in a separate self. There's doubt, which applies actually to doubt of the possibility of enlightenment, or the doubt of the Buddhist teachings that they are way. And this translation says the distorted grasp of rules and vows. So not understanding that conventions, because Ajahn Sumedho talks about this more generally, like sort of that convention don't have absolute truth to them. They're just have a functional purpose. So identity view, doubt, wrong view about rules and vows, sensual desire, and ill will. So that's the 5 lower ones. The 5 higher ones, lust for form. And what that's actually referring to is the jhanas, the concentration practices, the absorption practices. So, I hope I'm not going to bore you guys tonight, but so another list, right? There's 8 jhanas, and there's 4 form jhanas that are formed jhanas, or and then there's formless jhanas. So if you get into these meditative states, these absorption states, you can become attached to them. So they can get in the way of becoming enlightened. So they become fetters. So there's lust for form, lust for the formless, again, the other four jhanas. Conceit, which is another version of self-view. It's hard for me to distinguish the difference, except the Buddha will say, the conceit I am. So it has to do with anything that kind of comes out of selfing. And then restlessness and ignorance. So the 10th fetter is ignorance, which is very telling because ignorance is also the first step, if you will, in the 12 steps of dependent origination, which is the way that suffering arises. It all starts with ignorance, but it's the last thing that we can get rid of through this process, through of attaining these different stages of enlightenment. So just to talk about some of these as they relate to our recovery, clearly sensual desire and ill will are the first problems we have to deal with as addicts, both in terms of just the addiction itself, which largely comes out of craving or sensual desire, but also an ill will or an aversion to our felt experience, and wanting to get rid of that. A very common reason that at a certain point in our addiction, we might not start out that way, but eventually we get to a point where it's like, I just can't stand this. I need to drink, kind of. And so we're not really drinking for pleasure or taking drugs for pleasure. We're just doing it to get rid of something. So sensual desire and ill will. And then, of course, ill will is kind of what, in the 12 steps, it's kind of what the inventory is supposed to be about. That's a lot of, what it tends to be about, and that we kind of have to make amends for. So, and then doubt, doubt is what the second step is meant to counter. Came to believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity, because there's a few different doubts we have as addicts. We have the doubt that we can stop. We can have the doubt that it's even worth stopping. Like, what's the point? Like, well, who wants to be sober, kind of thing. We can have the doubt that a program or this, or works, just as we can have a doubt whether meditation or Buddhism is true or whether it works. So we can see how important that is, because if you don't believe that something's going to work, then you won't do it. Well, meditation, I don't think that's going to do anything for me. So of course you don't meditate. So of course it doesn't do anything for you. So you just proved your point, sort of. Didn't accomplish much. And then identity view and conceit. I mean, we know, like, even in the 12 traditions, anonymity is the spiritual foundation of all our traditions. And anonymity is letting go of self. I mean, we know it like started out just as a way to protect these people socially, and professionally to some extent. Oh, don't use your last name so nobody will know who you are, so that people won't find out you're an alcoholic, because that was back in the 30s and 40s, presumably. That was like, really potentially could really do you a lot of harm. Nowadays, people use it as a way to promote themselves, I think. But anyway, but when you look at the more spiritual, the spiritual foundation is, I'm coming into this space and I'm letting go of my job and my status and my relationships, and I'm just bringing in my, Kevin alcoholic, and even that becomes, loses its individuality, because everybody in the room has said they're an alcoholic. So there's nothing that it doesn't make me special or separate in any way. So there's this very, very much this idea of letting go of separation in that concept that's very much in harmony with letting go of self. Yeah, I certainly, it's worth looking at some of the other Fetters as well. Restlessness, is, we know you're familiar with it as one of the 5 hindrances to meditation. And it's, again, something that can really trigger us into relapse or into, not being able to, certainly not being able to meditate, but sort of not being able to stay focused and stay with things, and just starting in things and never finishing them, and again, I think of that as kind of an addictive kind of behavior. It's this search for something that's going to be the thing that'll fix me, and we can't sort of just stop and go, it's just okay the way it is. I can just be with things the way they are. And then ignorance, interesting again as the 10th fetter, but also, denial as a denial of your addiction is tied in with ignorance. It's a rejection or a misunderstanding or a not knowing that there's this problem or what the problem is. So, it's the opposite of right view. And really understanding, how does my addiction arise and how do I let it go? And what is this process? I was just talking to someone today who was asking for some guidance, and who's just trying to get sober, just has a few days. And he was talking about how for years he was able to sort of like go for periods of time when he didn't drink, and then he would just have like 1 beer, and then the next week it'd be 3, and then a week later he'd have a blackout. And it's that way in which we never can sort of identify what the problem is, because we sort of have this control, except when we don't, and it can sort of be like, well, I can stop anytime. It's like Mark Twain, but it's easy to quit smoking. I've done it hundreds of times. So this idea of right view versus ignorance is really critical. Like seeing what the nature of our condition is. Right. If we focus too much on the detail, sometimes we miss the bigger picture of like, there's this process that's unfolding. And this is, just what we do in our meditation as well. When we practice mindfulness and watch our mind, we're kind of stepping back. And it's not so much like, I'm thinking about my 2nd grade teacher and how we, what she did to this. And I remember that. And it's not so much the details. It's seeing, that's grasping, or that's aversion, or that's resentment, that's fear. And we start to see our mind in these more generic and broader ways, so that we're not caught so much in the details and lost in it, but we're rather seeing the process by which things happen. And of course, the critical process we try to see is, how does suffering arise and how does it end? Those kinds of thoughts create painful feelings. And when I let go of them, when I find a way to let go, then those painful feelings subside. Pretty simple, not easy. And again, just like addiction, right? This grasping, this stuff that we have a hard time letting go of, that resentment that we can't let go of, but that when we do, we realize, like, what was I doing? I was creating that suffering. So right view is seeing the process, and then, right action is engaging with that process. Mindfulness, concentration, effort is how we let go. So maybe that's a lot, but yeah, I wanted to, I guess, bring this very lofty idea of enlightenment, which seems almost esoteric when you get into these 5 stages, a non-returner versus a once returner, but bring it back into the reality of our lives and what's kind of being pointed to. And yeah, those stages do involve a very deep meditative experience and a deep form of letting go that we might not be experiencing, but we can see that our own experience and our own recovery has parallels that are quite relevant, because our recovery is really transformative. It really is a spiritual awakening. So maybe to realize like, oh, well, maybe I could also attain that, maybe I'll become a stream enterer, because getting sober and getting into recovery is like incredibly amazing and miraculous. So why not, go the next step, if you're going to be a Buddhist. And of course, you don't have to be a Buddhist. So, there we are. Thank you, Catherine. Fetter, the part of a horse's foot. Oh, see, I knew it had to do with horses, but I had it all wrong. Good thing there's a dictionary. Between the fetlock, which is between the, oh boy, I don't know what those are. Clear as mud, yeah. Well, so fetlock and fetter has something to do with it. Huh. All right, well, you're going to have to do some more research so we can really understand what the point of it is and what's the relationship between that and the fetters in Buddhism. So, we have other people joining in. Kate says, a chain or manacle used to restrain a prisoner. Aha, very good. He lay bound with fetters of iron. Good quote. I always love like good dictionaries that give you like examples. All right, PDF of the book. Thank you, Angela. The Island, quite a read. So, anyone want to participate this evening? Share anything? Hey, Charlie. Good. Nice to see you.
Nice to see you too, Kevin. Joseph Goldstein talks about how you should practice like you're going to be enlightened.
Mm,
And I like that. I find
yeah.
that. And then also, I think it's important to recognize that, we get tastes of enlightenment, just little things that may happen that, you may react to a situation, whereas in the past, you may have reacted with, negativity, and then all of a sudden it's like, wow, so there's little kind of instances. I know I've experienced, I'm sure other people have too, but you just little kind of tastes of that. Those are important to kind of recognize.
Yeah, agreed. I mean, really, I think we have such a tendency to, I mean, I know I do, the like look at the negative and like how we're failing and, how bad my meditation is. And then, but yeah, we need to equally embrace and really, take some joy in those moments of letting go and just uplift and freedom and clarity and all of that. It's like, you talk about the 5 hindrances. It's like, I'm not every moment caught in those. There are moments when, yeah, when there's real freedom. It's one of the things that Ajahn Buddhadasa says. He says that many times a day we actually touch nirvana in little nirvanas. It's a very positive take on it. Oh, wow, Angela's put in so much stuff. You can spend the whole evening reading all the chats. So yeah, it's possible to offer Donna to me. That's nice. And my book, Living Kindness, coming out December 27th. You can get it off the Shambhala website with the discount that's in there, which is nice. They're really charging a lot for it, though. I don't want to, tell anyone, but it's a lot more than I would charge if I were in charge of charging. But that's one of the things you let go of when you have the publisher. This is being recorded too, right? Delete that. Any other thoughts tonight on the spiritual awakening theme or anything else? Meditation, special prosecutors, basketball, anything you want to talk about. I'm an expert on everything. No, sorry.
And then I'll say something just to
good.
save you from
embarrassment and humiliation.
And I'll go quickly because I saw Catherine just unmuted as well. But and it was something you said in the meditation as well. And yeah, it's nice to be here because it's been a while. And yeah, I've been meditating in my car. I think I told you this, in my car in the parking lot before I go in to work. And I don't know if it's being a little bit more consistent or like really throughout my day. I'm also trying to just bring more awareness to, my mental state and how I'm doing. And, but yeah, today I did a nice guided meditation. It's usually guided that I do. And it was one on patience by 7A Selassie. And, and then tonight in the meditation, I was having similar, just like watching the breath, and you were guiding that obviously, which is like, it's just so funny because it also, I feel like it's like recovery too, how it worked for me, where it's like, it's not like it's clicking like, oh yeah, I feel like I'm in this different stage of my practice, but for some reason, right? Like, I don't know, like sometimes when I would go to a meeting and I'd hear something for like the 50th time, and for whatever reason, there's something that just changed a little. And it's like, for some reason, it's just like, I'm watching my breath differently. And it's just interesting. I guess it's adding a little bit of like, yeah, there's some interest there in my practice, which, I relate to the things you were saying about, as being hard on myself about the practice and all of that. But yeah, so I guess I thought I'd just share that. And during the meditation, how you talked about, just letting go and kind of moving on. Like, I've been thinking about that those weren't your words, but just like, that it being okay to just kind of let go. And I've been thinking about that ability to like shift, especially when it comes to like an unpleasant feeling or state that I'm in. Right. So anyway, those are just some of the things that I've been reflecting on. So thank you for your teaching as always.
That's great. Yeah. I mean, just in general, I think it's interesting how if you keep meditating regularly, particularly daily, and occasionally go on retreats, it does keep changing, and maybe not like every day, but it's true too. I certainly have that experience that it's like, oh, this is a little different now. I'm like, just in subtle ways, right? Noticing the breath and noticing how you're kind of letting go or how you're connecting. I mean, I'm very much been in like a more open breath kind of awareness than, and that's partly from my work with the Anapanasati, not focusing so much on the sensations, particular sensations for a long time. Like I'll check with them, but it's more like I'm just sort of sitting with the whole movement, and that's things, it just evolves. So you said someone unmuted, someone that wanted to Sarah, was that
I'll go.
Catherine?
Hi,
Yeah.
Kevin.
Good. Yeah.
Sorry, I couldn't
Hi.
answer the question about the fetter, but I was thinking farrier. Where is he going? Anyway, I think it has to do with the theme of letting go. So, probably 7 years, 8 years into my sobriety, and you know this because you walked the journey with me. I had a big loss in my life. I was having some body work done yesterday, and he said, "Are you holding on to some anger?" And I said, "Oh, yeah, I guess I am." Worked with my sponsor, done a lot of meditation, a lot of prayer. And I said, maybe I need to do a forgiveness meditation. And he's like, "I think you skipped a step. I think you need to express that anger." So I wanted you to just kind of comment, if you would, on like working with those difficult emotions. And, is that a spiritual bypass if I just go to forgiveness without working through the anger? So I know you're not my psychotherapist, but
Well,
thanks for any light you can share.
Yeah, thank you, Catherine. I appreciate just like the question because it's relevant for all of us. It's just so it really is. It's kind of something that I've been not in myself, but in some people I know, like kind of watching that, and I just know that anger is so seductive. It gives us this feeling of power, even though it's not really giving us any power. But it also feels, because very often we are angry about an injustice, it also feels as if we let go of the anger, then we are allowing the person, we're declaring them not guilty when we know they deserve to go to prison. They are guilty. And so letting go of it feels like wrong, just wrong, And so, I mean, I don't know when it's time to let go of anger, but it's definitely, when it starts to be measured in years, then I'm pretty sure it's not, functioning. There's no functional aspect to it because, of course, what it becomes then is just this reiteration. It's just you're running the same tape over and over and finding new and different ways to engage it and to arouse it. And it makes you feel alive. Makes, it feels intense. There's drama to it. But yeah, I mean, I don't even really understand forgiveness, frankly. And that may sound, I don't know what that sounds like, but what I mean is that it's not, I guess I don't even really like the idea of forgiveness. I've never thought about it quite in this way, or maybe certainly never said this, but I don't think it has to be a choice between anger or forgiveness. It's more like a choice between holding on to anger and not holding on to anger, and just saying, I'm not going to keep stirring that up, because the forgiveness implies that I'm saying something to them about like, it's okay, and I forgive you. It's like, fuck you. Sorry. Like I don't forgive you, but I'm not going to let you occupy this space in my mind that's making me suffer. So I'm going to let go of the anger as an active thing that I'm churning up. but I don't know if you have to go then do something formal about like, oh, I forgive you and I know everybody suffers and you deserve love just like everybody else. Like, you can do that, and there's lots of lovely meditations around that. But for me, the critical thing is seeing the suffering that's created with the anger when I'm attached to it, and that if I can let it go and just not do it. So it's like, I've talked about this before. I make a vow that when that thought arises, I let it go. Just like I make a vow, like if thought, oh, I should roll it and go buy some marijuana arises, I just let it go. I immediately turn away from it. I reject it as a thought.
I think that makes more sense to me, because I think I can be a quantumist if I just, have that corrective thought, that wise thought. And then I don't have to go to that place of forgiveness or compassion or whatever, maybe that'll come at some point. I just want to, as in recovery, it's all about, for me, letting go of the things that don't serve me anymore.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
This doesn't serve me anymore. And, and I think they say in the big book that resentment is, you want to drink again, go ahead and hold on to that resentment and you'll get, and I've worked too hard for this sobriety to let, holding on to something be detrimental.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think it's helpful to think there's something in between holding on to resentment and full-on forgiveness activity that you can spare yourself the suffering without having to embrace some kind of loving kindness towards this person that you're really not happy with. Because it's also just another opportunity to think about them, and the thing you want to do is stop thinking about them. And so, like, if I do forgiveness, it's like more of them. It's like, get out of here.
Kick me with that fetter or whatever.
With that fetter, get that fetter out of here. That's right. Kick me in the head with the fetter.
Oh God! All right, thank you.
Thanks, Catherine. Nice to talk. Somebody else, Abigail, I see you have your hand up. I thought someone else had their hand up, but maybe they left. It looks like everybody's still here by the number anyway. Go ahead, Abigail. Shoot.
Hi.
Hi.
You were talking about this letting go, and I was thinking that somebody recently said something really, really good about it. And so I looked in my notebook that I sometimes write notes in.
Mm-hmm.
And it was you. And you changed it to let it be.
Yeah, let it be. Yeah.
And I just...
Well, that's not my original idea. So.
I know you didn't. You didn't write the song, and it's
right. No. Well, I actually did, but
But it's... I have an image of, okay, I'm resentful, angry, I'm in dislike, I'm in judgment, I'm in all of those things.
Yeah.
And instead of thinking I have to let them go, I think about letting them be kind of in a puddle on the floor.
Perfect. I love it. Yes, exactly.
And then I can go on.
Uh-huh. Right.
Because they're in a puddle. But I also wanted to say that I have some difficulty with my father, who has been dead these many years.
Right.
Who also called by his first name, which also was Bill.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Interesting.
And I have some difficulty with, there's no need to go into it, but
no.
Fairly recently, out of absolutely nowhere, except that it's out of everything I've done, I realized that I had thrown the baby out with the bathwater.
Mm-hmm. Right.
I had just ignored all of the good qualities that were there.
Right.
And I think part of that came because I had given myself permission to let be the bad feelings. Just, let it be. I've got them. There they are.
Yeah.
In a puddle on the floor.
Yeah.
Anyway. So
Yeah.
I'm still working on letting it be.
Yeah, and I think it's so important to have that broad view of like nothing is 100% good or bad, and so especially our parents, you know. Thanks, Abigail.
Thank you.
There's Kate. That's who I knew. That's who had their hand up before.
I did. Hi, Kevin. I
Hi.
put my hand down because you and Catherine both brought some clarity. And then I thought, well, I wanted to thank you both for that because I'm right now going through hospice care with my mom,
Mm,
and who we moved here about 4 months ago to Wisconsin. And she got COVID and has just
oh,
not recovered. And she's
oh,
almost 93.
yeah,
And so she is going through that process of the body shutting things down, and not eating much and really not taking fluids of much either,
yeah,
and sleeping a lot.
right,
And she's not in a medical setting. She's in assisted living where they just
mhm,
have a limitation to the type of care she can receive. So that
right,
um, puts me in the position, since I'm 5 minutes away, of having to spend a lot of time there
yeah,
and dealing with the guilt of not spending every hour there. Um, I just really needed to hear a lot of what was shared
mm,
tonight after you were done with your teaching, and also your teaching itself, because the whole experience of being with someone as their physical body prepares to leave this plane has been such a gift and such an honor. And I am at the very same nanosecond I feel that way. um, I, I feel, I have to say it out loud so that I don't carry it. I
yeah,
feel a little resentment,
mhm,
and
right,
because there are 4 other siblings, yada yada yada. Everybody's
uh-huh,
got their story, and
well,
or
yeah,
one similar or dissimilar, and so it just is really important for me to verbalize out loud that there is an awful lot of suffering going on right now, and there's an
yeah,
awful lot of amazing experience that just brushes up against some pretty profound spiritual experiences. I'm not going
mhm,
to call them awakenings or enlightenment. They're just very intense, and oftentimes um, last but a few seconds. I guess I'll stop there. Thanks so much for
yeah.
everything. I
Thanks,
appreciate
Kate.
it.
You know, I really wish you well in that difficult process, and just, yeah, I mean, balancing taking care of yourself and taking care of someone else is a really difficult one. And you know, but it never does any good to give yourself away. So you can only do what you can do, and you know, you're not responsible at the end of the
Right,
day. You know, you're
right.
just not, you know. And it's great that you're there and that
Mhm.
you're showing up. So, and you know, don't drink or use no matter what. Take care of
Right.
yourself.
Yep,
And you
I
know,
am.
yeah, thanks.
I really am.
Yeah, thanks for sharing then.
Thank you for listening.
Okay. All right. Well, thanks everyone for showing up tonight. And I'll be back here on Tuesday. But if you're not back for Tuesday, I wish you uh, a happy Thanksgiving. If you celebrate, or if you avoid the whole thing, I hope that's happy as well. And yeah, um, take care of yourselves, and see you soon. Blessings.